Welcome back to our channel. Before we begin today's story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more unbelievable real-life stories that inspire, shock, and remind us that humanity still has heroes in the most unexpected places. Now, let's get into the story, one that proves kindness can be louder than cruelty, even when the person suffering cannot hear a single word spoken around her. It was an early Saturday morning, the type that felt peaceful and slow, where the sun was warm but not harsh, and the streets of the small town were just waking up. The Bluebird Diner, an old-fashioned place known for its homemade pies and friendly staff, was already buzzing inside with families, travelers, and regulars. But outside, something entirely different was happening, something cruel, heartless, and completely uncalled for. On the sidewalk near the entrance, an elderly woman named Margaret stood trembling. Her hands shook as she clutched her small purse to her chest. She was deaf and communicated mainly through sign language and written notes. She lived alone, had no family left nearby, and spent her mornings walking to the diner for a simple breakfast and a moment of peace. But on this day, her routine was interrupted by something far worse than she could have imagined. 3 teenage boys stood in front of her, blocking her path, laughing loudly as one of them held up a phone, recording her distress. Margaret couldn't hear their insults, but she could read their faces, their gestures, their mocking tone. She knew humiliation when she saw it. She knew cruelty, because life had shown her enough of it over the years. One boy waved his hands in an exaggerated, mocking imitation of sign language, twisting his fingers into nonsense shapes while sneering. Another boy stepped closer, tugging lightly at the strap of her purse, causing Margaret to flinch. The third teenager, the one recording, commented loudly for his friends, describing what they were doing as if it was some kind of joke for their viewers online. The passerby traffic was light. A few people slowed but moved on, unsure of what was happening or afraid to get involved. Margaret felt her eyes fill with tears. Her chest tightened, and she shook her head, trying to squeeze past them, but they blocked her again. Inside the diner, a man named Eddie, one of the cooks, noticed through the large window that something was happening outside. Eddie was used to seeing Margaret. She was quiet, polite, and always left a thank you note on the table before she went home. Seeing her distressed made his heart pound. He rushed out from behind the grill toward the front door. But Eddie wasn't the only one who noticed the scene outside. At the far end of the parking lot, engines rumbled, deep, heavy, unmistakable. A group of bikers had just pulled in. Leather jackets, chrome bikes, and patches that said Iron Legacy Riders. They were a familiar presence around town. Not a gang, but a brotherhood known for charity rides, supporting veterans, and helping anyone who needed it. Their leader, a tall and weathered biker named Hawk, had a reputation for being tough on the outside but compassionate where it mattered. The bikers had planned to stop at the diner for breakfast before riding out to a fundraiser. But as they prepared to park their bikes, Hawk's sharp eyes caught sight of the boys outside. He saw Margaret crying. He saw the phone pointed at her. He saw the mocking gestures. That was all it took. Hawk revved his engine once, a loud, thunderous sound that echoed across the lot. The bullies didn't notice at first, too busy laughing at the trembling woman in front of them. But by the time the roar of several more motorcycles pulled up beside him, the boys finally looked up. Their laughs faded. Their expressions shifted. The bikers weren't just watching from a distance. They were walking. No, marching, toward them with purpose. Hawk was at the front, his boots hitting the pavement like warning drums. Behind him were 8 other bikers, big men and women with stern expressions and eyes cold with disapproval. These were people who believed in protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The boy holding the phone froze. His hand trembled as he lowered it. The second boy stepped back. The third swallowed nervously. Margaret turned, saw the bikers approaching, and instinctively backed away, assuming they were just another group of people who might judge or misunderstand her. But Hawk stopped several steps away from her, raising his hands gently to show he meant no harm. He pointed to his chest, then made a slow, simple gesture in sign language. "Are you okay?" Margaret's eyes widened. Her lip trembled. She slowly shook her head. Hawk turned toward the boys, and just like that, his entire demeanor changed. Gone was the gentle calmness. In its place was a terrifying stillness. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough to force the boys to look down at their feet. One of the younger bikers, a woman named Rita, known among the group for being bold and sharp-tongued, stepped forward and pointed at the phone still clutched in the boy's hand. "Delete it, now." The boy fumbled with the phone, scrambling through his gallery with shaking fingers. Rita watched every move, making sure he deleted every video and picture taken. Then Hawk leaned in slightly, not close enough to touch, but close enough that the boy felt the weight of being confronted by someone twice his size. "If you ever so much as point that phone at someone vulnerable again, we will find out," Hawk said in a low, steady voice. "You think you're brave picking on someone who can't hear you? Try it with someone who can." The boys apologized, stuttering, pale, humiliated, and ran off, leaving their bravado behind on the pavement. As soon as they were gone, the bikers turned their attention back to Margaret. Eddie finally rushed outside, apologizing for not reaching her sooner. But Margaret wasn't alone now. The bikers formed a protective circle around her, not closing in, but creating a safe space so she could breathe again without fear. Hawk knelt slightly to be at her eye level, signing slowly and clearly, "You're safe now. We're here." Margaret nodded weakly. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from fear anymore, but from relief. Rita gently took her hand and guided her inside the diner. The other bikers followed quietly, making sure she was surrounded not by chaos, but by comfort. Inside the diner, word spread quickly about what had happened. People stood, offering to give up their tables so Margaret could sit wherever she felt most comfortable. The waitress brought her tea without even asking. She knew exactly what Margaret liked. The bikers took seats at nearby tables, forming a sort of accidental escort. Margaret took out a small notepad and wrote something. She slid it toward Hawk. "Thank you for seeing me." Hawk shook his head and wrote back, "You deserve respect. Always." As Margaret ate, the bikers didn't treat her like someone fragile, they treated her like a friend. They asked simple questions through written notes, through gestures, through the universal language of kindness. They shared stories, jokes, and smiles. By the time she finished her meal, Margaret wasn't trembling anymore. She laughed, silently, but brightly, with the kind of joy she hadn't felt in years. Before leaving, Hawk asked her something important. "Do you walk here alone every morning?" Margaret nodded. Hawk looked at his group, then back at her. "We'll be here every morning, until you want us to stop." Margaret's eyes filled again, not with sorrow, but gratitude. For weeks after the incident, the Iron Legacy riders made it their mission to escort her safely to the diner. They didn't make a show of it. They didn't post it online. They simply rode beside her, walking their motorcycles at her pace, making sure she felt safe. Word got around town, and people started offering help too. Some locals began learning basic sign language just so they could greet her properly. The diner staff started using simple signs while serving her. Even children stopped to say hello with shy but genuine gestures. But the biggest transformation came from the bullies. After their parents found out, and after the community learned what happened, the boys were asked to meet Margaret face to face to apologize properly. At first, she was reluctant. But when the day came, she agreed to hear them out. They didn't bring excuses. They brought handwritten letters. They said they were wrong. They said they didn't understand what she went through. They said they were sorry. One boy admitted that he thought recording people suffering was normal because he saw others do it online. Another said he never realized how it felt to be mocked for something you couldn't control. Margaret accepted their apologies. She didn't sign anything harsh or cold. Instead, she wrote something simple. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do now. The boys asked if they could learn sign language from her. Slowly, over time, they did. Weeks turned into months. Margaret wasn't just a lonely elderly woman anymore. She became a symbol of resilience in the town. The bikers, who once were misunderstood by strangers, became local heroes. The boys who once bullied her became young men trying to do better. The diner became a community home where everyone felt welcome. And Margaret, she found a new family, one made not of blood, but of compassion. One morning, Hawk walked beside her as they approached the diner again. Margaret stopped, placed her hand on his arm, and made a deliberate sign, one she wanted him to understand fully. "Thank you for giving me my voice back." Hawk nodded, touched. Then he signed back clumsily but sincerely. "No, you never lost it." The story of Margaret and the bikers spread far beyond the town. Not because the bikers filmed it. Not because they bragged online. But because someone inside the diner, who had seen everything through the window, shared the story anonymously to remind the world of something important.